The golden lights of the rosewood Miramar ballroom shimmered like liquid honey, reflecting off crystal chandeliers and tall glass windows overlooking the quiet Santa Barbara shoreline. Tonight was supposed to be perfect, a billionaire's fairy tale. Adrian Vale, the man who believed he could bend the entire world to his will, stood at the altar in a tailored ivory tuxedo, flashing the confident smile he had practiced for days. His wedding to tech influencer Sabrina Hale was finally here, lavish, excessive, and crawling with Silicon Valley royalty. He didn't see the cameras anymore. He didn't hear the soft music from the quartet. All he heard was the applause feeding his ego. He lifted Sabrina's hand, kissed her knuckles, and let the room admire him. He was the king of Valitech, the genius of AI, the man who had escaped a marriage he claimed was holding him back. Then, just as the officiant prepared to speak, the doors at the back of the ballroom opened. A hush rolled across the crowd like a wave crashing into sand. In walked a woman in a simple navy dress, her hair loosely gathered, her posture small compared to the glittering guests. Some people didn't recognize her at first, but those who did gasped, whispered, or clutched their glasses tighter. Adrian's smile flickered just a little, before freezing in place like plaster. Harper Lane, his ex-wife, the woman he had dragged through a brutal divorce, the woman he publicly called unstable and financially irresponsible to win sympathy and secure his spotless image, the woman he believed would never dare step into a room full of people who had already chosen his side. But it wasn't Harper that turned the room on its axis. It was the man walking beside her. Grant Mercer, CEO of Mercer Capital, Adrian's most feared competitor. The man whose presence alone could collapse stock prices or spark a news storm. Grant wasn't touching Harper, not in a romantic way, but he walked with the steady confidence of someone who knew exactly what his appearance would do to Adrian's world. Yet even Grant wasn't the final blow. Because in his arms, nestled comfortably against his chest, was a baby. A tiny boy dressed in soft beige, his head resting sleepily on Grant's shoulder. A baby who had Harper's eyes. A baby everyone assumed could only belong to one man. Adrian Vale. Cameras flashed. Guests whispered louder. Sabrina stiffened beside Adrian, her hand trembling slightly. Adrian's face drained of color, the smirk collapsing into something closer to terror. His fingers twitched. His chest rose too sharply. For the first time tonight, the king of the room looked like a man who'd just seen his entire empire crack open. Grant shifted the baby in his arm and looked directly at Adrian. Harper lifted her chin. Every camera swung toward them, and in that single moment, the entire wedding froze, right before everything shattered. And then Adrian whispered something no one around him could believe. For years, Harper Lane had lived the kind of quiet life people never looked twice at. Orderly, modest, invisible. She wasn't born into privilege or wealth. She grew up in a small house in Portland, raised by a mother who worked double shifts at a diner and a father who left before Harper turned 10. Her childhood was built on hand-me-down clothes, coupon books, and the quiet understanding that life rarely gave without taking something first. But Harper had always been a fighter. She put herself through college, worked nights as a barista, and eventually earned a respected position as a financial analyst at Turnian Capital. Her diligence made her someone her colleagues relied on, even admired. And then one day, fate, or what she thought was fate, brought Adrian Vale into her life. Adrian, back then, was not yet the towering CEO he would become. He was smart, magnetic, already dreaming in billions while still earning thousands. He loved telling Harper she grounded him, that she was the one person who understood him. Harper, who had never felt chosen by anyone before, fell hard. Their early marriage was a hopeful blur. Cheap takeout dinners, arguments about whose turn it was to buy groceries, kisses in cluttered hallways of their first apartment. There were good years, soft years, years when she believed Adrian truly saw her. But ambition has sharp edges, and Adrian's ambition grew faster than his love. As he climbed the ladder of the tech world, something in him hardened. He became obsessed with image, reputation, and comparisons. Every move Harper made, her job, her clothes, her circle of friends, became tools for him to control. When she got pregnant, Harper hoped the baby would soften the distance that had formed between them. Instead, it widened the canyon. Adrian began claiming she was too emotional, too stressed, unfit to be a CEO's wife. He belittled her choices, her work, even the way she breathed when she was nervous. Harper started shrinking without noticing, limiting her laughter, picking quieter clothes, avoiding arguments. Survival disguised as compromise. When their son arrived premature, tiny and fragile in the NICU, Harper begged Adrian to be there. He showed up once, stayed 12 minutes, then told the nurses he had a product launch to prepare for. She held their son alone for a month, whispering promises she feared she wouldn't be able to keep. The breaking point came when Harper discovered the truth. Adrian had been quietly feeding rumors to her firm, claiming she struggled with severe postpartum instability. It was enough for them to temporarily suspend her, except the suspension turned permanent. Harper lost her job, her insurance, and her footing in the world within weeks. When she confronted Adrian, he didn't deny it. He simply said, "A CEO can't have a wife who looks weak." That was the day Harper left. The divorce was vicious. Adrian weaponized everything: his lawyers, his influence, even his social media following. Harper lost friends, lost stability, and nearly lost custody. She worked night shifts as a cashier, barely affording childcare. Some nights she cried in the bathroom stall at Target just to release the pressure building in her chest. And yet she survived, because mothers do. But what Harper didn't know, what she couldn't have imagined, is that someone had been watching from the shadows of her past. Someone who had been looking for her for years. Grant Mercer, her childhood friend, the boy she once shared secrets with. The man Adrian thought he had erased from her life by design. Harper had no idea that the threads of her life were about to tighten around a truth she never saw coming, and that truth would hit her the moment Grant finally told her why he returned. There was a time, though it felt like a lifetime ago, when Harper Lane belonged to a different world. Not glamorous, not luxurious, but stable. And for her, stability was gold. She remembered those early mornings in their modest two-bedroom condo in San Francisco, sunlight slipping through the blinds, the smell of cheap coffee filling the kitchen while she typed numbers into a spreadsheet on her old MacBook Air. Back then, life wasn't perfect, but it was hers. She worked hard, saved every penny, dreamed small but real dreams. A house with a yard, a safer car, maybe a dog for their future child. But when Adrian Vale ascended from a mid-level engineer to the prodigy of Silicon Valley, their world shifted. Their condo became a penthouse overlooking the bay. Their dinners went from homemade pasta to reservations at Michelin-starred restaurants where no menu had prices. Their arguments, once about chores or forgotten dates, turned into strategic image discussions. How she should dress, who she should befriend, what charities she should naturally support. Harper never wanted that life, but she tried to fit in. She wore modest designer dresses Adrian bought on Fifth Avenue. She learned how to smile quietly at tech galas without saying the wrong thing. She stood in the shadows while he gave speeches about innovation and leadership. On the outside, people envied her. Inside, she felt like a ghost wearing expensive clothes. And when Adrian kicked her out, coldly, efficiently, as if she were an outdated file to delete, that world vanished overnight. Within weeks, Harper went from penthouse windows and private drivers to a cramped one-bedroom apartment in Glendale, with an air conditioner that rattled louder than thunder. She slept on a donated mattress. She clipped coupons again. She worked part-time at Target, scanning items while customers complained about prices she had no power to change. Sometimes, she held her son with one arm while answering emails from low-paying freelance gigs with the other. Her only luxury was a lukewarm Starbucks coffee she allowed herself once a week. But the hardest part wasn't the bills. It was the humiliation. People online, fans of Adrian, called her unstable, ungrateful, dramatic. They repeated the lies Adrian fed the press, that she abandoned him, that she couldn't handle marriage to a man of his stature, that the baby might not even be his. Harper fought alone, drowning in a battle that wasn't fair. She had evidence of nothing. Adrian had evidence of everything, manufactured or not. Meanwhile, the world that once admired her husband now admired his new relationship with Sabrina. The glamorous influencer, always camera-ready, always speaking in soft, curated tones. Their engagement photo went viral. Articles praised Adrian for finding peace and moving on from a toxic marriage. Harper didn't read the comments, but the universe is strange, sometimes cruel, sometimes kind in hidden ways. Because just when Harper believed she was completely forgotten, something happened. On a gray Tuesday afternoon, while she was pushing a cart of discounted items toward the stockroom, she heard a voice she hadn't heard since she was 17. A voice that didn't belong in a Target aisle under fluorescent lights. "Harper," the man said. She turned and froze. Grant Mercer, older now, sharper, dressed in a navy suit that didn't belong anywhere near bargain shelves, stared at her as if he'd just found something precious he had lost long ago. His eyes softened, but beneath that softness was something else. Relief, anger, fear, and a strange kind of urgency she couldn't explain. Harper opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Grant stepped closer, his voice low, almost shaken. "I've been looking for you for years." Before Harper could speak, before she could breathe, Grant's next words shattered her world all over again. "And Adrian did everything he could to make sure you'd never find me." Adrian Vale had perfected the art of appearing flawless. To the world, he was a visionary CEO, the man who dragged Vale Tech from a dusty garage project to a corporation valued at more than most small nations. He charmed investors, dazzled journalists, and manipulated public opinion like a seasoned magician. People saw brilliance. What they didn't see was what Harper had lived with for years, the quiet, calculated cruelty that lurked behind his smile. Even in college, Adrian wasn't a man who accepted no. He didn't raise his voice, didn't throw objects, didn't behave like the villains people imagine. His weapon was subtlety, words crafted with precision, reassurances that sounded tender but cut to the bone. He made people believe they were flawed, then positioned himself as the solution to the flaws he created. That was his power. And when he entered Silicon Valley's inner circles, he didn't rise, he devoured. Every competitor, every critic, every former ally who dared step out of line mysteriously stumbled. A leaked document here, a rumor there, lost funding, lost credibility, careers buried without fingerprints left behind. Adrian was a master surgeon performing assassinations while wearing a spotless white coat. So when Harper left him, his greatest humiliation wasn't losing a wife, it was losing control, losing the narrative. And nothing enraged Adrian Vale more than a story he didn't author. Which was why his engagement to Sabrina Hale unfolded at a dizzying speed, almost like a calculated PR move. Sabrina, with her polished influencer persona and perfect camera angles, was the kind of woman Adrian could mold into a brand extension. He didn't love her, he curated her. She served as a symbol. Look how happy I am without Harper. Look how stable. Look how upgraded. To Harper, Sabrina was simply another wound on a heart already swollen with bruises. Their relationship played out across glossy magazine covers and Tech Life podcasts. Sabrina gushed about finding real love after toxicity, a phrase clearly fed by Adrian. She posted morning coffee photos beside his Mont Blanc pen, tagged luxury hotels as if they were casual afterthoughts, and flaunted the sapphire engagement ring that cost more than Harper's entire apartment building. People adored it. They admired Adrian for starting fresh, and pitied Sabrina for inheriting the mess Harper supposedly left behind. The entire narrative was twisted so skillfully that Harper herself sometimes questioned what was real. What the world didn't know, what Sabrina herself didn't know, was that Adrian's control extended far beyond public perception. Grant Mercer knew. He had seen it years earlier, before Adrian became the face of modern innovation. Their rivalry wasn't born from business competition. It was born from something far more personal, something Harper had been shielded from, something Adrian had worked relentlessly to hide. But the cracks in Adrian's perfect facade were starting to widen. His company was under quiet scrutiny for a series of suspicious acquisitions. Several board members were whispering concerns in closed-door meetings. Valtech's stock had been unusually volatile in the month leading up to the wedding, and the one person who knew exactly why was standing right beside Harper that night: Grant. Adrian, however, was too blinded by arrogance to see the storm forming. To him, the wedding was a coronation, a spectacle of dominance, a chance to show the world that he had moved on, leveled up, evolved beyond Harper Lane. He had no idea that every carefully arranged detail was about to unravel. And Sabrina? She was the spark, beautiful, selfish, insecure, who would ignite the explosion. Because as the hours approached the ceremony, Sabrina had discovered something on Adrian's phone. Something that wasn't meant for her eyes. something that could ruin everything before the vows were even spoken. She confronted him in the bridal suite. Guests heard muffled shouting, a glass breaking, Sabrina storming down the hallway, mascara running. But no one knew why, not yet. Only Sabrina and Adrian knew the truth. A truth that Harper would learn far sooner than anyone expected. And the first clue was already waiting, hidden inside Sabrina's trembling hands. When people saw Grant carrying the baby into Adrian's wedding, most assumed the worst. Some whispered, some gasped, some clutched their pearls with glee at the idea of scandal. But no one, absolutely no one, knew the truth about that child. Not the guests, not the press, and certainly not Adrian Vale, the man who had walked away from his own son long before the baby took his first breath. Harper's pregnancy had been one of the darkest chapters of her life. She'd discovered she was expecting on a cold February morning, 2 weeks after Adrian told her she was emotionally exhausting and holding him back. She remembered standing in the cramped bathroom of their penthouse, staring at the test strip, her heart racing not with joy, but terror. She had hoped a child would bring them closer. Instead, the news only widened the chasm. When she finally gathered the courage to tell Adrian, he didn't even lift his eyes from his laptop. "Harp, do you know what this will do to my schedule?" he muttered. She stood there, hand on her still flat stomach, waiting for a moment that never came. No smile, no touch, no excitement. Just irritation. But Harper tried. She tried to understand the pressure he was under. She tried to adapt, support, compromise. She kept hoping Adrian would eventually soften. Instead, he sharpened. In her second trimester, Adrian began sleeping in the guest room, claiming he needed rest for high-stakes decision-making. In her third trimester, he started leaving for business trips that lasted days, sometimes weeks. And just after her 7th month, Harper discovered the first bouquet of roses addressed to someone named Sabrina, attached to Adrian's credit card statement. That night, when she confronted him, he didn't argue. He didn't deny. He just shrugged, poured himself a glass of scotch, and said, "You're becoming a liability, Harper. I need peace." A week later, he filed for divorce. The stress sent her into early labor. She arrived at the hospital alone, clutching her belly as contractions ripped through her body. Nurses asked where her husband was. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. The empty chair beside her said everything. Her son, tiny, delicate, born too early, fought for every breath. Wires covered his body. Machines beeped relentlessly. Harper stayed by his incubator day and night, singing to him, praying he'd never inherit the coldness of the man whose DNA he carried. Adrian showed up once, 12 minutes. He left after a phone call, more important than his newborn son. From that day on, Harper vowed to protect her child from the cruelty she had endured. She refused to tell the world whose baby he was. Not because she wanted to hide the truth, but because she didn't want Adrian's shadow to touch even a single strand of her son's hair. She named the baby Noah. Noah Lane, not Noah Vale. She would carry the burden alone if she had to. But there were moments, late nights, rent overdue, formula expensive, when she wondered how long she could hold everything together. She would look at her sleeping son, tiny fists curled, chest rising and falling, and whisper, "I'll find a way, I promise." Still, Harper never imagined that way would come in the form of Grant Mercer. Someone from her past, someone Adrian went to great lengths to erase from her future. Which was why Grant holding Noah at the wedding wasn't a planned stunt. It was a miracle timed with razor-sharp precision. A miracle Harper didn't understand yet. Because Grant hadn't just reappeared to help. He reappeared because he knew something about Noah that Harper didn't, and the truth would change everything Harper thought she knew about her own child. The first time Harper saw Grant standing in the fluorescent aisle of Target, she thought her mind was playing tricks on her. Grant Mercer belonged to boardrooms with marble floors, to conference tables surrounded by men in tailored suits, to penthouses overlooking Manhattan, not the clearance section where she stacked shampoo bottles during her break. He hadn't changed much. Older, yes. Broader shoulders, sharper jawline, more control in his posture. But his eyes, those eyes she remembered from summers in Portland when they were just kids running around a lakeshore, were still intact, still steady, still honest. She blinked at him, clutching her red employee vest as if it were armor. "What are you doing here?" she whispered. Looking for you, he answered without hesitation. That sentence hit her harder than she expected. People didn't look for Harper. People left. People forgot. People moved on. But Grant had found her. He looked down at the cart she was pushing, half filled with discounted baby wipes and off-brand formula. It made her cheeks burn with humiliation. I just finished a shift, she muttered. It's not glamorous. Grant's expression softened. Since when do you need to impress me? She swallowed, suddenly aware of every inch of her uniform, every sign of exhaustion etched into her face. I'm not the person you remember. Grant leaned in slightly, voice gentler. Then let me meet who you are now. No one had spoken to her like that in years, but the sweetness of the moment broke when Noah's cry pierced the air. Harper's instincts kicked in. She hurried to the back room where she kept Noah during her shifts, and Grant followed close behind, not out of intrusion but concern. When he saw Noah, tiny, bundled in a thrifted blanket, the look on Grant's face shifted. Something deep, something unreadable. He crouched beside the stroller, studying the baby with an intensity that made Harper uncomfortable. He's beautiful, Grant murmured. He's all I have, Harper whispered. Grant's eyes flicked up at her. Not anymore. She didn't understand what he meant, or why emotion cracked through his voice like that. She was too tired to ask, too tired to feel, too tired to hope. Instead, she tried to pull back, to keep distance. She didn't trust herself around someone who remembered her from before her life fell apart. Grant, I appreciate you checking in, really, but my situation isn't something you can fix with charity. His expression hardened, not with anger, but conviction. This isn't charity, Harper. I don't want pity. You're not getting any. She exhaled, frustrated. I can't afford more people leaving. Grant looked at her slowly as if making a silent vow. I didn't leave, he said. Adrian made sure we lost contact. Harper froze. What are you talking about? Grant looked around, ensuring they were alone, then spoke in a low, steady voice. 8 years ago, I asked you something important. Something that could have changed both of our lives. And Adrian intercepted it. Harper shook her head. That doesn't make sense. Adrian didn't know you back then. Yes, he did, Grant replied quietly. He knew you and I stayed in touch after high school. He knew you trusted me. And he made sure you never got the letter I sent. Harper felt her knees weaken. A letter? Grant had written her a letter? Why? She whispered. Grant hesitated, his jaw tensed. Because in that letter, I told you how I felt. She felt air leave her lungs. You? What? Grant stepped closer, eyes never leaving hers. I've been searching for you ever since, Harper. She gripped Noah's stroller handle to steady herself. Grant, what did your letter say? Grant swallowed, throat tight. It said that But before he could finish, someone slammed open the stockroom door, and Harper's entire body went cold. The stockroom door swung open so hard it slammed against the wall, making Noah jolt in his stroller. Harper turned instantly, her heart jumping into her throat. Standing in the doorway was her target manager, Mr. Henson, red-faced, sweaty, and visibly furious. There you are, he snapped. You can't just disappear in the middle of a shift. And who is this man in a suit back here? This is restricted staff area. Harper opened her mouth, but Grant stepped in front of her before she could speak. It's my fault, Grant said calmly, with the authority of someone used to being obeyed. I asked her to show me where the stockroom was. Henson scoffed. And she listened because, why? You look like you walked out of a Wall Street ad? You think you can stroll in and interrupt work hours? Grant pulled out his wallet. Do you accept corporate emergency compensation? No, Henson snapped. This isn't a valet stand. Your friend here has a job to do. Grant's expression didn't shift, but something in his posture changed. His voice dropped, low and controlled. Harper has been working back-to-back shifts, often unpaid overtime. She hasn't had a break in 5 hours. I suggest you reconsider your tone. Henson took a step back, startled by the sudden shift in dominance. Sir, I suggest you mind your business. Grant pulled out a business card and held it out between 2 fingers. My business, he said, is ensuring she isn't taken advantage of. Henson grabbed the card and froze. His jaw slackened. His eyes flicked from the card to Grant, then back again. You're Grant Mercer, he stuttered. Grant didn't blink. Yes, and Harper Lane is with me. Henson's entire demeanor transformed. The anger evaporated. His voice stammered. I didn't realize, Mr. Mercer, sir, I didn't mean. You did, Grant said, his tone still like steel. But you're going to fix it. Henson nodded rapidly. Of course, yes. Anything. Grant stepped aside only after Henson all but ran out of the stockroom, nearly tripping over a mop bucket in panic. When the door shut, Harper sank onto a crate, shaking. Grant, you can't do that. You can't barge into my life like this. He knelt down so they were eye level. I'm not barging in. I'm staying. She shook her head. I don't need saving. You need support, he corrected softly. There's a difference. Harper felt tears forming, hot and humiliating. I can't afford to depend on anyone again. Grant pressed a hand gently to the stroller, watching Noah breathe softly. You won't be depending on me, I'll be standing with you. Harper wiped her eyes. Why, Grant? Why now? Why after all these years? Grant's jaw tensed. Because I thought you didn't want me. Because I believed you made your choice. What choice? The choice Adrian tricked you into. Her breath stilled. Grant, what did he do? He intercepted my letter. He answered a call meant for you. He deleted messages from my number. He manipulated your email, just enough that we lost contact without you ever realizing. Harper shook her head, disbelief fighting with clarity. Why would Adrian do that? Why did he care if we talked? Grant hesitated, the truth heavy on his tongue. Then he exhaled and said it, because he knew I was going to ask you to leave him. Harper jerked back. What? 8 years ago, Grant said slowly, I found out what Adrian was doing behind the scenes. The shady deals, the lies, the way he treated people. I wanted to protect you, and I told you, I begged you, in that letter to walk away before he destroyed you. Harper pressed a hand to her chest. Grant? Why? Why would you do that for me? Grant looked directly into her eyes, unflinching. Because I was in love with you. Harper's breath caught. She felt the ground tilt beneath her, the world narrowing into a single point. But Grant wasn't finished. And Harper? Adrian knew. That's why he erased me. That's why he made sure you never heard from me again. Harper's heart pounded painfully. Grant, this is too much. That's not even the worst part, Grant said quietly. Harper froze. Adrian didn't just erase me, Harper, he erased something far bigger, something that concerns Noah. For a moment, Harper forgot how to breathe. The hum of the stockroom lights faded. The smell of cardboard and cleaning supplies dissolved. All she could hear was Grant's voice echoing in her mind. Something that concerns Noah. She steadied herself against a crate. Grant, what are you talking about? What could Noah possibly have to do with you? Grant didn't answer immediately. He stood, pacing once, twice, as if searching for words that wouldn't break her. Harper, he finally said, Noah wasn't supposed to be born early. Harper blinked. What? It's premature birth. It wasn't nature. It wasn't random. It wasn't your body failing. Grant's eyes hardened, anger simmering beneath calm. It was caused. Her stomach dropped. Grant, don't say things you don't mean. I do mean them, he said, because it took me months of digging, months of following information that didn't add up, but I found the truth. Harper grabbed Noah's stroller instinctively, as if protecting him from words alone. Tell me. Grant exhaled. During your 3rd trimester, Adrian had someone tailing you. Harper's hand flew to her mouth. No. He wanted to build a legal case, to frame you as unstable, neglectful, too stressed to be a fit mother. But when that wasn't enough, he told his private doctor to push for a medically unnecessary early induction. Harper felt her knees weaken. No, that can't be. He would never. He would, Grant said firmly, and he did. No, she whispered again, shaking her head. Adrian wouldn't risk the baby's life. He wouldn't. He didn't care about the baby, Grant said sharply. He cared about the timing. Harper froze. The timing? She echoed. Grant nodded. Adrian had back-to-back investor meetings, a potential acquisition. He believed a premature birth would earn him sympathy and buy him leverage. Look at the devoted father pushing through adversity. Harper felt sick. He used Noah for attention. He used Noah for profit, Grant corrected. And when complications arose, when Noah struggled to breathe, Adrian blamed you. He filed paperwork claiming your stress, emotional instability, and irresponsible decisions were the cause. Harper pressed a trembling hand to her forehead. She remembered the looks the nurses gave her, the sideways glances, the whispered assumptions. All of it suddenly made horrifying sense. She whispered, That's why the hospital questioned me. That's why child services visited me. Grant nodded. He set you up. Harper felt tears burn hot behind her eyes. Not soft tears but sharp ones, born from betrayal so deep it stole the air from her lungs. He risked Noah's life, for business. Yes, Grant murmured. And when Noah lived, when he fought harder than anyone expected, Adrian panicked. He wanted the story to go away. And if Noah stayed with you, quiet, hidden, then he could pretend the birth never happened. A deep, shaking sob escaped Harper before she could stop it. She pressed a hand over her mouth, her body trembling. Grant stepped closer, his voice low and steady. Harper, none of this was your fault. You didn't fail Noah. Adrian failed both of you. She looked up at Grant, tears streaking her cheeks. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Grant's voice cracked for the first time. Because I didn't have proof. Not enough. Not until last month. Harper wiped her face. What happened last month? I got access, he said quietly, to files he thought he erased. Her breath hitched. Files? Grant nodded. Medical records, deleted emails, payment transfers, and surveillance logs. Harper felt a shiver race down her spine. Surveillance of me? Grant swallowed. Of you and of Noah. Harper's heart twisted painfully. Grant? What do I do? How do I fight someone like him? How do I protect my son? Grant took her hand, gently, reverently, as if holding a fragile truth. You don't have to fight him alone, he said. Harper searched his eyes, fear mixing with fragile hope. Grant, what are you planning? He squeezed her hand once, something Adrian will never see coming. Harper blinked. What do you mean? Grant stepped closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. Harper, I didn't come back into your life to protect you. I came back to destroy him. Harper Lane never imagined she would set foot inside the Rosewood Miramar again. Not after the humiliation. Not after the divorce. Not after the sleepless nights spent feeding Noah while Adrian posted glamorous photos with Sabrina, pretending life had never been softer, easier, happier. But life has a strange way of circling back to the very rooms where pain was born. The invitation to the wedding hadn't been a gesture of peace. Adrian didn't know the word. It was a legal trap. The final signatures on the asset division had accidentally been delayed, forcing Harper to appear in person on the very day he vowed to another woman. Adrian wanted one more dig, one more spectacle of triumph, his ex-wife walking into his celebration alone, fragile, forgotten. A weak narrative, one he didn't expect to break. But Harper wasn't alone. She walked beside Grant Mercer. The drive there was surreal. Grant's black Mercedes S-Class hummed smoothly along the coastal highway, the Pacific shimmering beside them. Noah slept in the back seat, tiny chest rising and falling under the soft seaside light. Harper kept glancing at him, guilt twisting deep. I shouldn't be bringing Noah, she whispered. This isn't a place for a child. Grant shook his head. He's not just any child, and you're not walking into that room without your strength. She exhaled. Strength feels like a luxury these days. Grant shot her a glance, then borrow mine. Harper looked away before her cheeks betrayed her. Grant wasn't what she remembered from childhood. He was steadier, colder in the ways that mattered, but warmer in the places that counted. And he wasn't afraid of Adrian. Not like she once had been. As they pulled up to the resort, the world outside looked like another universe. Valet drivers in white gloves, manicured lawns, champagne fountains glistening under the California afternoon sun. Guests in designer suits and glittering gowns fluttered toward the ballroom, most clutching gift bags more expensive than Harper's monthly rent. Grant stepped out first, buttoning his navy suit jacket. He walked around to open Harper's door, extending his hand. She hesitated only a moment before taking it. His palm was warm, steadying. You ready? He asked. No, she admitted. Good, he said. The right moment rarely feels ready. Noah stirred, and Grant carefully lifted him from the car. The baby nestled into his shoulder, tiny fingers curling into Grant's shirt. Harper watched with a pang she didn't understand. Grant carried Noah like he'd done it for years, not awkward, not forced, but instinctively protective. As they entered the marble foyer, whispers erupted immediately. Is that Harper Lane? With Grant Mercer? And that baby, is it his? Oh my God, Adrian's going to lose it. Harper felt her pulse thundering. Her heels clicked against marble like the slow beat of a drum announcing war. Then the ballroom doors opened. The music softened. Guests turned. Sabrina froze mid-laugh. Adrian, standing confidently near the altar, turned toward the entrance, and the confidence drained from his face like blood from a wound. His eyes locked on Harper. Then on Grant. Then on the baby. For a split second, Harper felt every ounce of trauma claw its way back. Every insult, every lie, every moment Adrian made her believe she was small. But then Grant shifted Noah slightly, resting the baby closer to his heart, and Harper felt something snap into place. The fear didn't disappear, but it loosened. She wasn't alone, not anymore. Adrian took a step forward, jaw clenched so tightly the muscles jumped. Sabrina grabbed his arm, but he yanked it away, staring at Harper with unfiltered shock. Harper swallowed, lifted her chin, and walked deeper into the ballroom. Every camera pivoted. Every whisper sharpened, every judgmental glance turned into curiosity, confusion, or awe. Adrian's voice broke the silence. "What is he doing with my—" Grant cut him off with a cold, calm sentence that carried across the room. "She's not yours to control anymore." Harper's breath caught, and then Adrian's mother, Margaret Vale, a woman Harper hadn't seen in over a year, rose from her seat with trembling hands. She stared at Noah, then at Harper, and with a voice barely a whisper said, "Harper, did you ever read the letter I sent you before you left Adrian?" For a heartbeat, the lavish ballroom felt suspended in time. Crystal chandeliers shimmered above, violins hummed softly, but every gaze had locked onto Margaret Vale. Her frail hands trembled against the back of her chair as she stared at Noah, really stared, her eyes filling with a mixture of longing, guilt, and something Harper had never seen from the woman before. Fear. "Margaret," Adrian hissed under his breath. "Sit down." But Margaret didn't sit. Instead, she stepped toward Harper, her heels clicking delicately on the polished floor. Harper's breath caught. Margaret had never once offered kindness in the years Harper was married to Adrian. She had been cold, judgmental, distant, always insisting Harper wasn't strong enough for a man like her son. Yet now, the older woman reached out a trembling hand toward Noah. He looks like," she whispered. Adrian's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Mother, enough." Grant shifted Noah protectively, and Margaret's eyes flashed with a painful realization. She looked at Harper again, her voice trembling. "You never read the letter, did you?" Harper frowned. "What letter?" Margaret let out a broken laugh. "Of course you didn't, because Adrian made sure you wouldn't." The room erupted into sharp whispers. Adrian's expression darkened. "Mother, you're confused. You don't know what you're—" "Don't you dare tell me what I know," Margaret snapped, her voice echoing across the hall. Years of suppressed guilt, grief, and anger cracked open in an instant. She deserved to know the truth. She deserved a chance, and you took that from her. Harper's pulse hammered in her throat. "Margaret, what was in that letter?" The older woman turned to her, eyes wet. "The truth about your pregnancy, about Noah, about what Adrian did when he found out you were carrying a child he didn't want." Gasps rippled through the guests. Harper's legs wobbled. Grant steadied her with a gentle hand at her back. Adrian stepped forward, tone icy. "Do not speak another word." But Margaret did. "That doctor wasn't incompetent, Harper," she said quietly. "He was instructed." Harper's throat closed. "Instructed? To do what?" Margaret swallowed hard. "To induce you early, to increase the chances of complications. Adrian thought a premature birth would make custody easier, or eliminate the issue entirely." Sabrina's hand flew to her mouth. Several guests recoiled in horror. Harper felt something inside her crack, so sharp, so deep it stole the breath from her lungs. The betrayal wasn't new, but the magnitude of it hit her like a tidal wave. Adrian's voice boomed. "This is slander. My own mother has memory issues. She's unstable. You can't listen to her." But Margaret didn't flinch. "No, the only unstable one here is you." The crowd murmured louder. Someone pulled out a phone. Cameras clicked. The narrative Adrian had worked so hard to engineer was slipping through his fingers. Sabrina stepped back from him, her voice shaking. "You told me she was the unstable one. You told me she fabricated everything." Adrian's jaw clenched. "Sabrina, don't be naive. This is orchestrated." But Sabrina had seen his phone earlier. She knew what she saw. The deleted messages, the second phone, the threatening emails. She wasn't stupid. She wasn't blind. "Adrian," she whispered, "how much of what you told me was a lie?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Grant stepped forward, Noah still nestled in his arm, and spoke loud enough for the press microphones to catch. "You tried to erase Harper. You tried to erase your own son. And now the truth is coming out, whether you like it or not." Adrian's head snapped toward him. "You think you can come into my wedding and humiliate me?" Grant didn't blink. "I'm not humiliating you, Adrian. I'm exposing you." The room erupted. Adrian lunged forward, rage twisting through his features. But before he could reach Harper, security rushed in, grabbing him by the arms. Adrian's voice cracked through the chaos. "You think she's safe with him? You have no idea what he's hiding." Harper froze. Grant went still, and Adrian, fighting against the guards restraining him, shouted, "Ask him why he really came back, Harper. Ask him what he's been hiding from you." For a long, suspended moment, the ballroom was nothing but noise. Gasps, murmurs, camera shutters snapping relentlessly. Sabrina sobbing quietly near the floral arch. Adrian, red-faced and feral, was being held back by 2 security guards while still shouting accusations Harper couldn't make sense of. "Ask him," he barked. "Ask Grant why he suddenly cares. Ask him what he's been hiding." Harper felt her stomach twist, not because she believed Adrian, but because the room did. All around her, whispers ignited like dry leaves catching fire. Wait, what does he mean Grant's hiding something? Did Grant manipulate this whole moment? What if this was staged to humiliate Adrian? Why does that baby look so much like Harper but nothing like Adrian? Could Grant be the father? That would explain everything. Harper felt the eyes, the judgment, the speculation, the sudden shift in public perception. Seconds ago she'd walked in a victim, a mother, a survivor. Now, she was a headline waiting to explode. Harper Lane, 2 men, 1 baby, and a CEO's fall from grace. Grant stepped closer to her, but even he seemed aware that the foundation beneath them had shifted. He angled his body protectively, shielding Noah from the flashes, but the damage had already begun. "Harper," he said gently, "don't listen to him." But she couldn't respond. Her throat felt tight, her heart pounding violently. She had trusted Grant, felt safe with him in a way she hadn't felt in years. Yet the room's relentless whispers wormed their way into the fragile cracks inside her. Because Adrian's words weren't the type he would waste on a bluff. When Adrian attacked, he attacked with precision. He used truths twisted into daggers. Harper whispered, "Grant, what is he talking about?" Grant's jaw tightened just for a second, but she saw it. A flicker of hesitation, a crack. That hesitation rippled through her like ice. Suddenly, Sabrina staggered toward them, mascara streaking down her cheeks. "He told me you 2 were nothing," she cried at Harper. "He told me you were unstable, obsessive. He swore you'd never dare show your face here." Sabrina pointed a trembling hand at Grant, and he said Grant Mercer was the enemy, that Grant was trying to destroy Valitech long before this. Grant didn't look at Sabrina. "He's lying." Adrian thrashed against the guards. "Tell her, Mercer. Tell her who you were before you became a billionaire. Tell her what you stole." Harper felt a cold wind glide through her spine. Grant finally spoke, measured, calm, but too calm. "He's twisting things, Harper. He always twists things." But this time, twisting wasn't enough to dismiss the doubt blooming inside her. Grant reached for her hand, but she stepped back. Just an inch, but it felt like miles. His voice softened. "Harper," she swallowed. "You promised you came back to help me. You promised you weren't hiding anything." "I'm not hiding anything that matters," he replied. But the sentence cracked at the edges. The guests watched like a live drama unfolding before them. Phones lifted. Cameras zoomed in. The bride's bouquet lay forgotten on the floor. Even the musicians had stopped playing, bows hovering above violin strings. And then Margaret Vale whispered the words that broke the room open again. "Harper, Grant didn't just reappear out of kindness. He reappeared because he found out about what Adrian did to your pregnancy." Her voice shook. "But Grant knew long before he told you." Harper froze. "What?" she breathed. Grant shut his eyes for a moment, as if bracing for impact. "I had to be sure," he whispered. "I didn't want to tell you without proof." Harper felt her chest tighten. "But you still kept it from me." Adrian laughed, a cruel, cracking sound. "See, he's not your savior. He's manipulating you the same way I did." Grant stepped closer, pleading. "Harper, look at me. I'm not him. I'm not." But Harper's vision blurred with tears, pain, betrayal, confusion twisting together until she couldn't breathe. She whispered, voice breaking, "Grant, what else haven't you told me?" Grant stared at her, pupils widening, breath unsteady. And his answer was interrupted when Noah suddenly began to cough, and then went frighteningly still. For one terrifying moment, the noise of the ballroom disappeared. The cameras stopped clicking. The whispers vanished. Even Adrian's shouting faded like a distant memory. All Harper could hear was Noah's small, stuttering cough, and then the silence that followed. A cold, brutal silence. "Noah?" Harper whispered, voice cracking. Grant's grip tightened around the baby. Noah's tiny chest wasn't rising the way it should. His lips paled, his head slumped weakly against Grant's shoulder. Panic tore through Harper so violently she stumbled forward, nearly collapsing to her knees. "Give him to me," Harper cried. Grant immediately lowered Noah into her arms, but fear was etched deeply into his face. Fear Harper had never seen on him before. "Oh God, Noah baby, look at Mommy," Harper begged, tapping his cheek gently. "Sweetheart, breathe, please breathe." The ballroom erupted. Guests screamed. Chairs scraped against polished. Someone shouted to call 911. Someone else asked if there were any doctors. But Harper didn't hear any of them. Her world shrank to the size of the tiny boy lying limp in her arms. She pressed her forehead to his, her tears dripping onto his skin. "Please, Noah. Mommy's here. Don't leave me. I can't lose you. I can't." Adrian stopped struggling against security. For the first time all night, shock, not anger, crossed his face. Is something wrong with the child?" he muttered. Grant spun toward him, fury simmering. "You don't get to ask that." But Harper wasn't listening. Her fingers trembled as she tried to stimulate Noah's breathing. Her vision blurred. Her knees buckled, and she sank onto the floor, holding him tightly against her chest. "Move," a woman's voice called out. A guest, Dr. Patrice Levant, a pediatric specialist, pushed through the crowd and knelt beside Harper. "Let me see him," she urged. Harper hesitated, clutching Noah desperately. "Harper," Grant said softly, kneeling beside her. "Let her help." Slowly, painfully, Harper loosened her grip. The doctor examined Noah swiftly, her brow furrowing. "He's having a respiratory episode. Premature babies can have latent airway complications. Has this happened before?" Harper shook her head violently. "No, never." "He's been fine." The doctor didn't look convinced. "Is he up to date on all his neonatal follow-ups?" Harper froze. She remembered missed appointments she couldn't afford. Times she had to choose between formula and bus fare. Times she told herself Noah was growing fine so the checkup could wait. The doctor sighed gently, compassion replacing judgment. "We need to get him stable now." Grant leaned closer. "What do you need?" "Warmth, oxygen, and space," the doctor said. Everyone stepped back. The crowd parted as if pulled by invisible strings. Harper remained frozen on the floor, watching helplessly as the doctor worked. Grant lowered himself beside her, his hand hovering near her shoulder, not touching, but close enough that she felt the warmth radiating from him. "Harper," he whispered, "look at me." She shook her head. "This is my fault. I should have taken him in. I should have done more." "You did everything you could," Grant said. "No," Harper cried. I failed him just like Adrian said I would." Grant's voice hardened. "Don't you dare believe anything that man ever told you." But the guilt sank its claws deep. Her chest tightened until she couldn't breathe. She buried her face against Noah's tiny body. "Stay with me," she whispered. "Mommy needs you." Then, after agonizing seconds, the doctor called out, "He's responding. Keep him upright." Noah coughed. A weak but definite sound. Harper gasped in relief, tears spilling freely down her face. Grant exhaled shakily, closing his eyes for a brief moment. The doctor continued adjusting Noah's position. "We need an ambulance. He needs monitoring at the hospital." Harper nodded frantically. Yes, anything." But just when hope flickered back into her chest, just when the panic began to loosen, Margaret Vale stepped forward again, her face pale, her voice trembling. "Harper, there's something you need to know about Noah's medical history." Harper froze. Grant's eyes widened. Margaret swallowed hard and whispered, "What Adrian did to you, he also did to Noah, and it's time you knew exactly how." Harper felt the room tilt again, this time not from fear, but from a deep, throbbing dread. She clutched Noah closer as Margaret Vale stood trembling in front of her, wringing her hands like someone preparing to confess a lifetime of sins. "What do you mean?" Harper whispered. "What did Adrian do to Noah?" Margaret's eyes glossed with shame. "He didn't tell you everything about the early induction. It wasn't just unnecessary. It was dangerous. He forced his doctor to rush the process with fetal monitoring. There were complications, ones he never told you about." The world thinned into a ringing hum. "What complications?" Harper choked. "Breathing irregularities, cardiac dips, Oxygen deprivation. Margaret inhaled shakily. The doctor warned Adrian that Noah might develop intermittent respiratory episodes as he grew, but Adrian didn't want records that suggested he caused them. Harper felt as if someone had ripped the ground from beneath her. So he hid it? He hid medical information about my son? Margaret nodded, tears finally spilling. He ordered those records buried. He didn't want anyone linking Noah's condition to his decision. Grant's face darkened, rage tightening every line of his jaw. You knew, and you stayed silent. Margaret flinched. I was scared of him. He controls everything, doctors, lawyers, even me. But when I saw that baby tonight, I saw what I let happen. Harper's breath stuttered. She wanted to scream, to collapse, to tear the world apart, and demand justice for every second Noah struggled alone. But all she could do was cradle him, rocking him gently as if her heartbeat could mend every wound he'd ever carried. Sabrina stepped forward hesitantly. Harper, I think you should see something. Harper looked up, confused. Sabrina pulled out her phone, shaking, and opened a folder of screenshots. I didn't know what I found earlier. I just thought they were bad. I didn't understand the full scale. She held the screen toward Harper. Dozens of emails flashed across the display. Messages between Adrian and his private doctor. Threads about rushing the induction. Conversations about controlling the narrative. One sentence glowed like poison. Make sure she doesn't find out. If complications arise, we'll blame stress or her condition. Harper's head spun. And look at this, Sabrina added, swiping again. Now there were payment logs, transfers to the doctor under different shell companies, signed NDAs, voice transcripts. Harper's heart shattered piece by piece with every passing second. Grant clenched his fists. This is enough to bury him. But the room wasn't finished breaking. Because Adrian, still held back by security, began laughing. Not hysterically, not wildly, but low, controlled, razor-sharp. You think that's the worst I've done? He spat. You're so painfully naive. Harper snapped her head toward him, fury burning through her tears. What else did you do, Adrian? He smirked, a dead, venomous smirk. You want the truth? You really want it? Grant stood between them. Say one more word, and I'll... No, Grant, Harper said, voice raw. Move. Grant hesitated, then stepped aside. Adrian locked eyes with Harper. His voice dropped to a level meant only for her, but loud enough for the nearest microphones to catch. You think he's your savior? You think Grant Mercer came back out of love? Adrian let out a dark laugh. Wake up. He didn't come back to protect you. He came back because he needed something. Harper's pulse thrashed. Needed what? Adrian leaned forward, his voice coated with venom. Ask him why he kept digging into your pregnancy months before he knew you were struggling. Grant stiffened violently. Harper's heart stopped. What is he talking about, Grant? Grant opened his mouth, but no words came out. Adrian smiled, victorious. That's right, he won't tell you. Adrian tilted his head. Because if you knew the real reason he's here, you'd run. The room held its breath. Harper whispered, Grant, please tell me he's lying. Grant swallowed hard. And then... Noah suddenly gasped awake in her arms and whispered a sound that made Grant go pale. For a few seconds, the entire ballroom held its breath. Noah's tiny gasp, the faint whimper that followed, it snapped Harper's world into focus. She pressed her hand to his back, feeling the faint rise and fall of his chest. Relief washed through her, so powerful her knees nearly buckled. But the moment she lifted her eyes, she saw something else. Grant. Pale, frozen, terrified. The baby's faint murmur had struck him like a bullet. Harper tightened her grip on Noah. Grant, why did that scare you? Grant blinked hard. It didn't scare me. It just caught me off guard. It was a lie so thin it crumpled as soon as it left his mouth. Before Harper could push further, Margaret Vale stepped closer again, voice trembling like an old violin string. Harper, I tried to reach you after the birth. I tried to warn you about what Adrian was doing. I sent you a letter, then another, then emails. Harper's breath hitched. I never received anything. Margaret nodded sadly. I know. He intervened. Harper's heart pounded. Adrian blocked them? Blocked? Deleted? Redirected? He didn't want you hearing anything that could jeopardize his custody case or his reputation. Grant's jaw clenched. What else did he hide? Margaret swallowed. Everything. Harper, he spent months building a narrative. He contacted your employer, your friends, even your mother. Harper's stomach twisted. My mother stopped calling me. She said she didn't want to be in the middle. She didn't say that, Margaret interrupted softly. Adrian did. Harper felt the air leave her lungs. What? He reached out to her pretending to be your psychiatrist, Margaret said, voice cracking. He told her you were having postpartum psychosis episodes and were a danger to the baby. Harper staggered back as if she'd been struck. No, he wouldn't. He did, Margaret whispered. The ballroom erupted in horrified murmurs. And your employer, Margaret continued, voice shaking. He sent recordings, fabricated ones, of you having emotional breakdowns. He doctored audio clips, made it seem like you were unstable at work. He wanted them to fire you before you even announced your pregnancy. Harper's pulse hammered painfully. He wanted the world to think I was unfit. Grant stepped forward. Because if everyone saw you as unstable, he could control custody, assets, the narrative. All of it. Margaret nodded. He sabotaged your performance review. He pressured HR. He falsified medical notes. Everything was deliberate. Harper's breath broke into ragged pieces. He destroyed my life, my career, my family. Margaret wiped a tear. And when you finally left him, he made sure you'd be too overwhelmed, too isolated, too heartbroken to fight back. Harper stared down at Noah, at his tiny eyelashes, his soft breaths. A hot, shaking anger surged through her, anger born of years of being gaslit, silenced, erased. She whispered, voice shaking, he hurt my child, he hurt me, he hurt everyone around me. Grant knelt beside her. Harper, you're not alone anymore, I swear to you. But Harper cut him off, her eyes locked on his with fierce intensity. Grant, answer me something. She tightened her grip on Noah. Did you know any of this before you came back? Did you know what he did to me? To my son? Grant inhaled sharply, too sharply. The silence that followed was suffocating. Finally, Grant said, I knew. Pieces. Harper's chest constricted. Pieces? Grant's voice was low. I didn't know the full extent, I swear, but I knew something was wrong. I knew Adrian was hiding things. Harper felt the betrayal cut differently than Adrian's, sharper, because she had dared to hope. Why didn't you tell me? She whispered. Grant opened his mouth to speak, but Adrian, still restrained, laughed, a deep, poisonous laugh. Tell her, Mercer, he shouted. Tell her why you really came back. Tell her what you found before you pretended to care. Grant's expression shattered. Harper stepped back, heart racing. What did you find? She demanded. Grant, what are you hiding? Grant opened his mouth, and that was when Sabrina screamed, pointing at the entrance as a group of federal agents stormed into the ballroom. The ballroom froze as the federal agents marched inside. Dark jackets, stern faces, radios crackling with clipped commands. Guests scattered like startled birds, heels scraping across marble, champagne flutes rattling on abandoned tables. Even the violinists lowered their bows in shock. Harper clutched Noah tighter, instinctively shielding him with her whole body. Grant stepped in front of her, every muscle alert, protective. Adrian, still held back by security, stopped laughing. His eyes widened, not with concern, but with fear. Real fear. The lead agent lifted a badge. We're here for documents under federal investigation. No one leaves this room unless cleared. Sabrina gasped, stumbling backward. Documents? What documents? The agent didn't answer her. Instead, he pointed toward the catering hallway. Two officers disappeared into the back rooms. Harper's pulse pounded, her mind spinning. What's happening? Grant didn't respond. Not immediately. He stared at the agents with a familiarity that made Harper's stomach twist. This wasn't new to him. This wasn't shocking. He had expected something. Maybe not this moment, but something close. And that realization hit Harper like a punch. You knew, she whispered. Grant tore his eyes from the agents and looked at her, really looked at her. Harper, listen to me. No, she snapped, her voice cracking. Don't tell me to listen, not anymore. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. I wasn't hiding danger from you. I was trying to protect you from it. She shook her head, tears blurring the chandeliers overhead. I'm tired of being protected. I'm tired of being kept in the dark. Margaret Vale approached slowly. Harper, the investigation isn't about Grant. It's about Adrian. This is everything catching up to him. Harper wanted to believe that. She really did. But Grant's silence, his hesitation, it carved a deep, raw wound in her chest. The agents returned, carrying a file box sealed with evidence tape. One officer spoke loudly for the room. These documents link a private medical contractor to high-level financial tampering involving Valitech leadership. The ballroom erupted again. Sabrina's face drained of all color. Adrian, what did you do? Adrian thrashed uselessly in place. This is political, it's fabricated. Grant exhaled sharply, almost relieved. It's over. They finally found the tie. Harper looked at him. Tie to what? Grant hesitated again, and it broke her. Grant, she whispered, voice trembling, stop lying to me. He swallowed hard. Adrian was laundering money through medical contracts. The same contracts tied to the doctor that handled your induction. When I started investigating it, I found links that suggested your case wasn't the first. Harper felt dizzy. So you knew Noah was in danger before he was even born? Grant closed his eyes. I suspected. I didn't have proof until months later, and I didn't want to tell you until I could keep you safe. Harper felt like the air had been knocked out of her. Safe? You think keeping me ignorant kept me safe? Grant stepped closer. I was trying not to frighten you. You were already fighting to stay afloat. Harper's voice cracked. You should have trusted me to choose what to do with the truth. Grant's face crumpled. I'm sorry, but apology felt too small. Too late. The federal agents approached Adrian. Adrian Vale, you are under investigation and subject to detainment pending further evidence review. Sabrina grabbed her bouquet off the floor and hurled it at Adrian's chest. You ruined everything. You lied about everything. But Adrian's eyes weren't on Sabrina. They were on Harper. You think he's the hero? Adrian hissed. Ask him why he really came back. Ask him what he really wants. He's not your savior, Harper. He's just another man who wants something from you. Harper's breath shook. She turned to Grant. Tell me, right now, why did you come back? Grant opened his mouth, pain carving deep lines across his face. But before he could speak, an agent approached holding a folder. Miss Harper Lane? He asked gently. Harper blinked. Yes? He handed her a sealed document. I think you'll want to see this. It concerns the paternity of your son. Grant froze. Adrian laughed, a broken, unraveling sound, and Harper whispered, What? What about his paternity? Harper had never held something that felt heavier than the sealed document in her hands. Not her divorce papers, not the hospital release forms, not even Noah the day he was born fighting for breath. This one envelope pulsed with a truth she wasn't sure she wanted. But she couldn't open it. Not yet. Not in a ballroom full of cameras, enemies, and ghosts of her past. Grant stepped toward her carefully, as if she were glass splintering. Harper, whatever is in that envelope, you don't have to face it alone. But she stepped back, and for the first time, Grant stopped moving too. Noah whimpered softly in her arms, worn out from the episode. Harper kissed his forehead, inhaling his warmth, grounding herself. I need air, she whispered. The federal agents nodded, giving her space. Sabrina said nothing, her mascara streaks drying into stiff lines. Adrian screamed for attention no one was willing to give him. Margaret stood frozen, guilt sinking into the fine lines around her eyes. Grant followed Harper as she pushed open the doors to the balcony overlooking the Pacific. Cool night air washed over her, cleansing, painful, steady. She leaned against the railing, clutching Noah against her chest. Grant stayed a few feet behind, uncertain, waiting. Harper, he began. She cut him off. Why does everyone think I can't handle the truth? Why is everyone so scared to give me the full picture? Grant's voice dropped. Because the truth is uglier than you deserve. She looked over her shoulder. And what you kept from me, was that to protect me? Grant swallowed hard. Yes, she turned fully to face him now. Or was it to protect yourself? Grant's jaw tightened, just a fraction. Harper, I cared about you long before your life collapsed. Adrian knew that. He knew I'd fight for you. That's why he erased me from your world. That part I believe, she whispered. But the rest? I don't know what's real anymore. Grant stepped closer, but slowly. No longer the confident billionaire who strode through her life like he owned the room, but a man stripped to honesty. I came back, he said, because when I found out what Adrian did to you, what he did to Noah, I couldn't stay away, I couldn't live with myself. Harper stared at him. Why didn't you tell me any of it earlier? His voice cracked. Because I didn't just investigate Adrian, I investigated you. Harper stiffened. Why? Grant closed his eyes briefly. Because I needed to know if Noah was safe. The ache in Harper's chest sharpened. Safe from what? Safe from the man who caused his condition, Grant said, and safe from the people who would try to use him as leverage against Adrian. Harper blinked hard, trying to push back tears. So I was a case, a file, a mission. No, Grant said firmly. You were someone I cared about. Someone I still care about. But you didn't trust me, she whispered. Grant looked wounded. Harper, you were drowning. Anyone could see that. I thought giving you everything at once would destroy you. She shook her head. Not telling me did. A long, painful silence stretched between them. The wind rustled her hair. The ocean waves rolled. Noah shifted, letting out a small sigh that somehow steadied her. Harper straightened. Slowly, deliberately. And for the first time since she entered the ballroom, she looked like herself. Not the woman Adrian broke, not the mother battling fear, but the woman who used to walk into financial boardrooms knowing her worth. I'm done being managed, she said quietly. By Adrian. By the world. Even by you, Grant. Grant nodded slowly, respectfully. No more lies, she added, from either side. Then, with trembling fingers, she broke the seal on the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Her breath caught. Her knees nearly gave. She gripped the railing to steady herself. Grant took a step forward. Harper, what does it say? She looked at him, eyes wide, stunned, breath stolen, and with a voice barely louder than the wind, she whispered, The test says Noah's paternity is inconclusive. Inconclusive? Grant repeated the word like it had punched the air out of him. Behind him, the sliding doors to the ballroom were still open, letting the distant noise spill onto the balcony. Murmurs, shouts, the snapping of reporters' cameras. Inside, Adrian was still restrained, still raging, still unraveling. But out here, the world felt small, quiet, sharp as glass. Harper clutched the paper, her fingers trembling. How can a paternity test be inconclusive? That doesn't make any sense. Grant exhaled, jaw tightening. It makes perfect sense if Adrian tampered with the test. But why would he? Harper breathed. Because, Grant said, voice darkening, an inconclusive result creates chaos, and chaos keeps you from trusting anyone but him. Harper shook her head. But Adrian didn't know about this test. Grant hesitated. That hesitation was enough. You knew, Harper whispered. Grant, you knew there could be an issue. He shook his head quickly. Not like this, not inconclusive. I didn't want you blindsided. I'm already blind, Harper whispered. All of this, every revelation, every secret, you knew pieces of it for months. Grant stepped closer, his voice softer now. Harper, look at me. Noah is your son. Nothing changes that. But Adrian, he's capable of altering medical files, paying off labs, forging results. Harper exhaled shakily. And you, what are you capable of, Grant? He flinched as if struck. I'm capable, he said quietly, of trying to protect you more than you asked me to. Before Harper could respond, the balcony door slid open again. It was Margaret Vale, her face pale, her hands clasped together. Harper, darling, there's something you need to know about the paternity. Harper stiffened. What now? Margaret stepped closer, tears forming. The hospital ran 2 tests the night Noah was born. One was filed officially, the one Adrian controlled. The other was kept off the record. Harper's breath hitched. Why would they run 2 tests? Because the doctor suspected tampering, Margaret whispered. He feared Adrian was trying to erase something, someone. Harper felt her pulse pounding in her ears. Where is the second test? Margaret's voice cracked. Adrian had it destroyed. Grant cursed under his breath. Of course he did. But, Margaret added quickly, he didn't know a nurse made a duplicate copy. She feared for the baby, for you. She hid the results. Grant's eyes widened. Do you have them? Margaret swallowed. Not here, but I know how to get them. Harper's breath trembled. Why are you telling me this now? Margaret wiped her trembling chin. Because watching your son struggle for air tonight broke something inside me. I failed you once. I won't fail you again. Harper felt tears sting her eyes. Noah whimpered softly, and she held him closer, breathing him in like oxygen. Then suddenly, screams erupted from inside the ballroom. Harper spun toward the doors. Grant was already moving. They rushed in to find the room in chaos. One of the federal agents had announced new to something in the documents linking Adrian not just to financial tampering, but to intentional medical fraud. Screens had been pulled down. Evidence was being projected. The crowd watched in growing horror. Emails, signatures, audio files. One recording stood out, the doctor's voice scared, whispering, "He asked me to alter the paternity sequence. He said the truth couldn't come out." Harper felt her knees wobble. Adrian finally snapped, roaring, "That recording is fake!" But no one believed him anymore. Grant stepped beside Harper. His voice was calm, deadly. This is it. This is the end of him. The press surged forward. Sabrina covered her face in humiliation. The federal agents tightened their grip. The entire ballroom smelled of fear, panic, and collapsing power. Adrian's eyes darted wildly, then locked onto Harper. "You think he's better than me?" he snarled. "Ask him what he did behind your back. Ask him why he went looking for the nurse long before tonight." Harper turned slowly toward Grant, her hands trembling. "Why?" she whispered. "Why were you looking for her?" Grant inhaled sharply. "Harper, I wasn't looking for the nurse." He paused. Every camera in the room swung toward him. "I was looking," he said softly, "for the man who might be Noah's biological father." Harper's blood ran cold. "And I found him." For a moment, the ballroom didn't merely fall silent. It suffocated. No breaths, no whispers, no shuffling, only the echo of Grant's words hanging in the air like a guillotine. "I found him." Harper's heart slammed against her ribs. She clutched Noah tighter, instinctively stepping back. "Found who?" Grant didn't answer immediately. His eyes were locked on hers. Apology, fear, heartbreak mixing together like storm clouds ready to burst. Before he could speak, one of the federal agents stepped between them, holding a tablet. "Miss Lane, we need you to see this. It's part of the recovered medical data." Harper's shaking hands reached for it. The screen illuminated her face with cold, clinical light. Lines of information scrolled across. DNA sequences, timestamps, unauthorized edits, suppressed results. Then she saw it. A name, a donor ID, a date. Her breath vanished. "No," Harper whispered. "This can't be." Margaret Vale stepped forward. "Harper, please, listen." But Harper couldn't hear anything except the rush of blood in her ears. The screen blurred. The room swayed. She forced herself to focus on the ID number again. "Grant?" Harper's voice trembled. "Say it. Say it out loud." Grant swallowed hard. "Harper, the second paternity test wasn't inconclusive. It was altered." "Altered by who?" she asked. "By Adrian," Grant said. "He paid the doctor to scramble the result, because the real father, according to the unaltered record, is not Adrian." Harper stumbled back. Her knees hit a chair. Noah whimpered against her chest. Margaret sobbed softly, turning away. Sabrina gasped and dropped her phone. Adrian laughed, loud, cruel, unhinged. "You think you can trust him? Go on, Harper. Ask him who it is." Harper's voice cracked. "Grant? Who?" Grant's face softened with heartbreak. "Harper, it's not me." She blinked. "Then who?" Grant looked down, grief shadowing his eyes. "The donor ID belongs to one man," he said quietly. "A man Adrian hated. A man he wanted erased from your life." Harper felt her lungs close. "No," she whispered. "It can't be." Grant nodded. "Yes, Harper, Noah's biological father is your childhood sweetheart. The boy you always talked about. The one who disappeared before you met Adrian." Harper's eyes filled with tears. Her voice broke. "Ethan?" Grant nodded once. "Ethan Gray. Adrian bribed his mother to send him away, then cut off every line of contact so you'd never know he tried to find you. Ethan applied as a donor before he left, years ago, never knowing his sample would be used early by mistake." Harper pressed a shaking hand to her lips. "Ethan, my Ethan." Margaret Vale stepped closer, tears streaking her face. "Harper, Adrian did everything in his power to make sure Ethan vanished from your world. He wanted you dependent on him. He wanted to isolate you." Adrian screamed, fighting the restraints. "She was mine. She was supposed to be mine." The federal agents shoved him down, pinning his wrists. Harper's knees buckled. Grant caught her elbow, stabilizing her. "Harper, Ethan didn't abandon you. He never stopped looking for you." Harper sobbed, deep, painful, trembling sobs that shook her entire body. Ethan, the boy she loved before life became cruel, the one whose letters she never received, the one Adrian erased, and Noah, her sweet, fragile son, was his. Grant whispered, "There's more." Harper lifted her wet eyes. "More?" Grant nodded, squeezing her shoulder gently. "Ethan wasn't just looking for you," he said softly. "He was looking for the child. He suspected something. And the last message he sent, before he disappeared again, was a request to meet his son." Harper froze. Her heart cracked wide open. "Where is he?" she whispered. "Where is Ethan now?" Grant's eyes darkened. "That's the part we don't know," he said. "He went missing 3 months ago, and the only person who knows why." He turned toward Adrian, who was panting on the floor, sweat dripping down his temple. "Is the man who tried to erase him." Harper clutched Noah, her tears dripping onto his tiny shoulder. Then Grant said, "Harper, Ethan may still be alive, and I think Adrian knows exactly where he is. For the first time since the nightmare began, Harper felt something sharp and unmistakable ignite inside her. Will. The will to stand. The will to rise. The will to choose the ending herself. After years of having her life written by men who saw her as someone to control, silence, or save. Harper wiped her tears. The heartbreak over Ethan, the rage toward Adrian, the confusion about Grant. They all sat heavy in her chest. But underneath it all, a new clarity began to form. She wasn't the same woman Adrian broke. She wasn't the fragile mother scraping by. She wasn't even the girl Ethan once loved. She was Harper Lane. And tonight, she would decide what justice looked like. She stepped toward Adrian, the man who had taken her past, twisted her present, and nearly destroyed her future. Federal agents tightened their grip as she approached, thinking she might lash out. But Harper's voice, when it came, was terrifyingly calm. "Where is Ethan?" Adrian sneered, even as sweat dripped down his temple. "What makes you think I'll tell you anything?" Harper stepped closer. "Because your world is collapsing, your reputation, your company, your future. In a few hours, you'll be behind bars, maybe for years." Grant stood behind her, silent, watching. Harper's voice sharpened. "But the police don't have everything yet. They don't know about Ethan. You want leverage? You want a bargaining chip? This is your last chance to save yourself from the harshest charges." Adrian laughed bitterly. "You don't have it in you. You never did." Harper's jaw tightened. "You don't get to define what I have in me anymore." Adrian's eyes flickered, not with fear, but with realization. Harper Lane was no longer soft, no longer breakable, no longer his. He looked away, jaw ticking. Ethan found something he shouldn't have. The doctor kept copies of the original medical files. Ethan tried to bring them to me, demand restitution for you. Idiot thought morality had a place in my world. Harper's voice shook with fury. "What did you do?" Adrian smirked, proud of his cruelty. "I had him handled." Harper felt her blood run cold. "Handled? Not killed," Adrian said quickly, sensing the federal agents listening. "Just sent far away, paid to disappear." Grant's eyes burned. "Where?" Adrian hesitated. For the first time his gaze darted across the room, calculating, searching for something to weaponize, and he found it. "Grant." He smiled like a devil finding a fresh sin. "You really think he's here for you? For love? He's here because Ethan contacted him first." Harper turned sharply to Grant. "Is that true?" Grant pressed his lips together, then nodded. "Yes. Ethan reached out to me months before he vanished. He thought I had the resources to protect you." Harper's heart twisted painfully. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because Ethan begged me not to," Grant whispered. "He didn't want you hopeful until he had everything you needed. He wanted to return to you with proof, with safety, for you and Noah." Harper felt tears sting her eyes again. Adrian barked a laugh. "They both wanted you. Pathetic, really." She ignored him. "Where is Ethan now?" she demanded. Adrian exhaled sharply. "A private wellness facility outside Fresno. He's using a different name, that's all I know." The federal agent beside him nodded to colleagues, already radioing the information. Harper stepped back, trembling, hope, grief, and fury swirling violently. Grant moved toward her, speaking gently. "Harper, once the agents retrieve Ethan, everything will make sense. Everything Adrian destroyed can be rebuilt." Harper looked at him with wounded eyes. "But trust, can that be rebuilt too?" Grant's face fell. "Harper." Before he could finish, her voice steadied, surprisingly calm. "Grant, I need to stand alone for a moment. I need to decide what kind of woman I'm going to be after tonight." Grant stepped back, nodding slowly, respectfully. Harper inhaled deeply, lifting Noah close to her chest. She turned toward the ballroom, toward the future she would choose for herself. But the moment she took her first step, the doors burst open, an agent rushing inside, shouting her name with urgency on his face. The federal agent burst into the ballroom, chest heaving, voice sharp with urgency. "Miss Harper Lane, we found him." Time slowed. Harper froze mid-step, Noah curled against her chest. Grant turned instantly. Even Adrian, restrained on the floor, and jerked his head toward the agent, panic flashing through his eyes. The agent lifted a tablet. On the screen was a live video call. A man appeared, gaunt, disoriented, but unmistakable. "Ethan Gray." Harper stopped breathing. Her free hand flew to her mouth as tears filled her eyes faster than she could blink them back. Ethan, her Ethan, looked older, worn down by months of isolation. But his eyes were still that soft brown she remembered from summers at the lake, from quiet teenage nights they never admitted were love. He spoke her name like a prayer. Harper, her knees nearly buckled. Ethan. Oh my God, you're alive. Ethan exhaled shakily, emotion cracking through every syllable. I tried to come back. I tried to reach you. I didn't disappear by choice. Harper tightened her hold on Noah. He's yours, Ethan. Noah, he's your son. Ethan smiled, a tired, trembling smile full of love and heartbreak all at once. I knew. I felt it. I prayed you'd both be okay. A federal agent stepped into the frame beside him. He's safe. We're transporting him to a medical facility in Palo Alto for evaluation. Ethan's eyes softened. Harper, you kept our son alive. You saved him. I'm so proud of you. Harper cried, quietly, violently, beautifully. For years she'd carried pain alone. Tonight she carried hope. And then Ethan whispered, when they release me, I want to see you. I want to see you. If you'll let me. Harper nodded through tears. Yes, of course I will. The call ended, and the room shifted. The agents turned toward Adrian. Your interference with a protected individual is now added to the charges. You will be transferred immediately. Adrian thrashed once more, but his voice cracked under the weight of total defeat. Harper, please. Listen. She didn't even look at him. For the first time in their entire history, Adrian Vale no longer existed in her world. Sabrina, trembling, mascara streaked, whispered, Harper, I'm sorry, I didn't know. Harper nodded softly. You were lied to, too. Then the agents dragged Adrian away, his shouts echoing into nothing. It was over. All of it. The lies, the sabotage, the fear, the control, the stolen years, gone. Harper felt the weight finally fall off her chest. Her shoulders straightened, her breath came deeper. Noah stirred against her, letting out the smallest sigh as if he sensed the storm had passed. Grant approached slowly, hesitantly. Harper, he said quietly, I know I made mistakes. I know I should have trusted you more, but every choice I made, right or wrong, was because I couldn't bear to watch you suffer. Harper looked at him, really looked at him. Grant had flaws. He had secrets. He had acted out of fear as much as love. But he had stood beside her through every blow. He had protected her when she had nothing. And he had fought for Noah like the child was his own. Grant, she whispered, thank you. For everything. His eyes softened. I'll stand with you however you'll have me. As a friend, as support, as more, if that's what your heart wants someday. Harper smiled softly. Gentle, honest, uncertain but full of hope. Right now, she said, my heart wants healing, peace, and a future where my son grows up safe. Grant nodded slowly. Then that's what you'll have. Harper inhaled the ocean breeze drifting through the open doors. The ballroom lights glowed behind her. She stood taller, stronger, steadier than she ever had. Ethan was alive. Noah was safe. Adrian was finished. Her name was cleared. Her future was hers again. She kissed Noah's head and whispered, We made it, baby. Then she turned to the crowd. Every camera, every whisper, every stunned face, and said in a clear, unwavering voice, No woman should ever have to fight this hard to be believed. But if you're in a battle, keep fighting. There is light on the other side. And for the first time in years, Harper Lane walked toward that light, toward a new beginning, one she finally chose for herself. So, that's where our story closes tonight. And if you're still here with me, truly here all the way to this moment, it means something in this journey touched your heart in its own quiet way. Maybe it reminded you of a fight you once had to face. Maybe it whispered a truth you needed to hear. Or maybe it simply made you feel less alone. Harper's story teaches us something deeply human. The world can wound you, people can betray you, life can fall apart in ways you never imagined, but you are still capable of rising. Marcus Aurelius once said, the obstacle is the way, and sometimes the very pain we fear is the doorway to the life we deserve. Harper learned that strength isn't loud, healing isn't instant, and justice does come, slow, steady, and unstoppable. And now, my friend, as you sit here with me at the end of this chapter, I hope you carry one thing forward. You are stronger than the storm you're walking through. Your story isn't over. If this touched you, even just a little, please like, share, and subscribe to join us for more stories that heal, challenge, and inspire. You matter here.